On January 4th, 2026, a chilling, white emergency began to grip Oswego County in upstate New York. What started as a familiar, albeit intense, lake-effect snow event streaming inland from the frigid waters of Lake Ontario rapidly escalated into something far more sinister. This was no ordinary winter storm. It was a relentless assault, a 4-day siege of unprecedented snowfall that brought daily life to a grinding halt and tested the very limits of human endurance and infrastructure resilience. For nearly 96 consecutive hours, an almost stationary snow band remained locked over the county, dumping an unceasing barrage of snow. Hour after hour, day after day, with little to no relief, the white blanket deepened. By January 7th, the landscape was unrecognizable. Entire neighborhoods vanished beneath towering drifts. Roads, once arteries of commerce and connection, became impassable canyons of snow. Emergency crews, pushed to their breaking point, fought a losing battle against nature's fury. Verified reports and widespread video footage painted a stark picture. Snow depths commonly exceeded 5 to 6 feet, with localized drifts soaring to an astonishing 8 feet, high enough to seal off doorways, obscure ground floor windows, and completely engulf vehicles. Officials issued repeated, urgent travel advisories. Schools across the county shuttered their doors, businesses ceased operations, and residents found themselves trapped in a Sisyphean struggle, spending grueling hours digging out, only to face fresh, relentless accumulation overnight. While lake-effect snow is an inherent, often brutal threat in the Great Lakes region, the sheer scale, the agonizing duration, and the raw intensity of this event placed an extraordinary strain on every facet of modern life, from infrastructure to emergency services, and most acutely, on the people caught in its path. This was a stark, chilling reminder of how quickly extreme winter weather can unravel the carefully woven fabric of a connected society. As the storm's grip tightened, the true magnitude of the snowfall began to emerge with terrifying clarity. By the midpoint of the event, vast portions of Oswego County were grappling with conditions rarely witnessed, even in this historically snow-prone region. Official measurements, corroborated by exhaustive field reports and extensive video evidence, confirmed ground snow depths across the hardest-hit areas consistently reaching 5 to 6 feet. Wind-driven drifts, sculpted by the relentless gusts, built up to nearly 8 feet in exposed locations, transforming familiar landscapes into an alien, frozen terrain. Snowfall rates frequently skyrocketed to 2 to 3 inches per hour, a pace that utterly overwhelmed road networks and rendered travel, even for the most prepared, an act of sheer impossibility. In the rural and northern sections of the county, visibility plummeted to near zero. Repeated, blinding bursts of heavy snow erased all landmarks, swallowed infrastructure whole, and created a pervasive sense of disorientation and isolation. Snowbanks, once mere inconveniences, now towered higher than parked vehicles, completely blocking doorways and first-floor windows, effectively sealing off homes and businesses from the outside world. Yet the storm's most defining and insidious feature was not merely its intensity, but its persistence. Unlike a fast-moving blizzard that might rage and then depart, these lake-effect snow bands remained almost perfectly stationary, relentlessly targeting the same communities for days on end. Roads painstakingly cleared in the morning were, more often than not, impassable again by afternoon. Emergency crews, their faces etched with exhaustion, described conditions where every inch of hard-won progress was continuously undone by fresh, merciless accumulation. This prolonged, unrelenting snowfall transformed a familiar winter hazard into a full-scale regional emergency, a battle against an unyielding force of nature. As the snowfall continued its relentless assault, the profound human impact across Oswego County became impossible to ignore. Entire neighborhoods were dramatically transformed into narrow, claustrophobic corridors, carved precariously between towering, impenetrable walls of snow. Residents awoke each morning to find their vehicles completely buried, sidewalks erased from existence, and doorways blocked by drifts that often reached chest level or higher, making even egress from their own homes a monumental task. In many areas, movement was restricted to a single hand-shoveled path leading from homes to the street, if, indeed, the street was even visible beneath the monumental accumulation. Daily routines, the very rhythm of life, collapsed under the sheer weight of the storm. Schools across the county either closed entirely or shifted to remote learning, their bus fleets utterly unable to navigate the snow-choked roads. Countless businesses delayed their openings or shut down completely, unable to receive essential deliveries or guarantee the safety of their employees, triggering an immediate, significant economic slowdown in the affected zones. For the residents, hours upon grueling hours were spent in a back-breaking effort to dig out homes, clear roofs, and liberate driveways. A Sisyphean task frequently undone by yet another round of heavy accumulation by nightfall. Emergency services reported a steady, concerning rise in calls. Stranded motorists, vital access routes rendered impassable, and a myriad of other weather-related hazards. In the more isolated rural sections of the county, some homes became temporarily inaccessible, secondary roads having simply vanished beneath multiple feet of snow, cutting off vital lifelines. Visibility during peak snowfall events dropped to near zero, rendering even the shortest distance travel fraught with danger. Concerns also mounted over the structural integrity of buildings under the prolonged, immense weight of compacted snow. Heavy, dense snow placed increasing, unrelenting stress on roofs, outbuildings, and crucial agricultural structures. Officials issued urgent pleas, urging residents to monitor their buildings closely and to remove snow where it could be done safely, delivering grim warnings that prolonged load could, and likely would, lead to sudden, catastrophic failures. Despite the escalating hardship, the spirit of the community shone through. Residents adapted in real time, coordinating snow removal efforts, selflessly checking on vulnerable neighbors, and conserving precious energy resources. Still, the message from authorities remained unequivocal and stark. Conditions were unstable, treacherous, and the storm was far from over. What had begun as a formidable weather event had quickly morphed into a sustained, grueling test of endurance for an entire community. By the fourth day of relentless snowfall, the strain on Oswego County's critical infrastructure had reached a perilous breaking point. Roads across vast sections of the county were not merely difficult, they were utterly impassable, as snowbanks rose at an astonishing rate, far faster than crews, however dedicated, could remove them. Primary arterial routes demanded constant, vigilant attention, while a distressing number of secondary and rural roads vanished entirely beneath multiple feet of snow, effectively wiping them off the map. Snow removal operations became a grueling, 24-hour-a-day battle, with plow crews repeatedly clearing the same stretches of roadway, sometimes multiple times within a single, exhausting shift. Despite these heroic efforts, progress was a fleeting illusion, frequently erased within hours as fresh snow relentlessly refilled cleared lanes. Officials, their voices strained, described the situation not as a traditional cleanup operation, but as a desperate, unwinnable race against accumulation. Emergency response systems were pushed to, and often beyond, their absolute limits. Dispatch centers reported a noticeable, alarming increase in calls involving stranded vehicles, blocked driveways, and, most critically, access routes too narrow for essential emergency equipment. In some dire cases, first responders had to coordinate with excruciating precision, navigating through heavily constricted corridors of snow to reach residents desperately requiring assistance. Public services faced mounting, unprecedented challenges. Waste collection schedules were severely disrupted, vital deliveries were delayed indefinitely, and access to essential services became increasingly difficult, if not impossible, in the hardest-hit areas. While power and communication systems largely remained operational, crews monitored conditions with intense vigilance, acutely aware that the sheer weight of the accumulating snow posed a constant, looming threat to utility lines and roadside infrastructure. County officials issued repeated, urgent travel advisories and strict winter parking restrictions, pleading with residents to remain off the roads unless absolutely necessary. The overarching goal, authorities explained, was twofold: not only to protect motorists from treacherous conditions, but also to provide snow removal and emergency crews with unimpeded access to operate more effectively. As the storm persisted, it became chillingly clear that Oswego County was not merely dealing with a singular weather event, but with a prolonged, existential emergency that demanded sustained coordination, immense resources, and unparalleled resilience from both weary officials and the suffering public. As snowfall continued to accumulate, officials warned that the most serious dangers were no longer limited to travel disruptions and immediate access issues. The prolonged, immense accumulation introduced a rapidly growing risk of secondary hazards, particularly the terrifying prospect of structural stress caused by the heavy snow loads. Across Oswego County, the roofs of homes, barns, and various outbuildings were subjected to sustained, immense pressure as compacted, water-laden snow continued to pile up, day after agonizing day. Emergency management officials reiterated their urgent pleas for residents to closely monitor their buildings and to remove snow from roofs where it could be done safely. Older structures, often less robustly built, and particularly agricultural facilities, were identified as especially vulnerable, carrying the chilling risk that prolonged wait could lead to sudden, catastrophic roof failures without any prior warning. Crews reported an increasing number of distressing calls related to sagging roofs, ominously blocked ventilation systems, and deeply unsettling concerns over collapsing structures, a direct consequence of the merciless, unyielding weight. The pervasive risk extended far beyond buildings. Narrowed roadways and towering snowbanks severely limited visibility at intersections, creating blind spots that were magnets for accidents, and critically reduced access for emergency vehicles, further hamstringing response times. Officials cautioned that even routine tasks, such as the arduous clearing of snow or walking short distances, carried a heightened and insidious risk due to sheer exhaustion, dangerous exposure to the elements, and the pervasive threat of hidden ice lurking treacherously beneath the deep snowpack. Weather authorities emphasized that conditions remained terrifyingly dynamic. Lake-effect snow is notoriously localized, a cruel lottery where some communities experienced truly extreme accumulation, while others, just a few miles away, saw comparatively far less. This inherent variability brutally complicated response efforts and amplified the pervasive uncertainty for residents desperately attempting to plan travel or initiate recovery. Despite periodic, fleeting lulls, forecasters issued grave warnings. Additional, powerful snow bands could redevelop with shocking rapidity under the same persistent atmospheric pattern. With the broader Great Lakes region remaining tragically favorable for continued lake-effect activity, officials stressed that complacency was not merely dangerous, it was potentially lethal. Public messaging swiftly shifted from mere short-term disruption advisories to an urgent, sustained call for unwavering caution and vigilance. The focus, authorities profoundly stated, was now on endurance, maintaining safety, conserving dwindling energy resources, and proactively preparing for extended and unforeseen impacts. What had innocuously begun as a severe winter storm was now being unequivocally treated as an ongoing existential emergency, demanding unwavering vigilance, unshakable cooperation, and profound patience from the entire beleaguered community. As cleanup efforts continued amidst the monumental snowdrifts in Oswego County, meteorologists and emergency officials began to place the storm within a larger, more ominous regional context. The atmospheric pattern responsible for the prolonged, record-breaking snowfall was not an isolated phenomenon. Its tendrils stretched across the entire Great Lakes region. Persistent Arctic cold air and a tragically favorable wind alignment continued to fuel repeated, brutal snow events, creating hazardous conditions that extended well beyond the confines of a single county. Upstate and central New York were among the hardest hit areas, with multiple communities reporting astounding feat of accumulation within shockingly short periods of time, each new storm compounding the last. Lake-effect snow bands, driven by the stark, unforgiving temperature differences between the biting Arctic air and the comparatively warm, open lake waters, repeatedly formed, intensified, and unleashed their fury. These bands reduced visibility to zero, buried roadways in a matter of hours, and relentlessly erased any hard-won progress made by exhausted snow removal crews across the vast region. Officials noted, with a chilling sense of dread, that the defining feature of this brutal winter was not a single, isolated extreme storm, but a devastating sequence of powerful, relentless events occurring in rapid, almost unbroken succession. Snow removal resources, already stretched perilously thin, were pushed past their breaking point as crews were forced to move from one emergency to the next, with precious little recovery time in between. Emergency managers issued grave warnings that prolonged strain on personnel, on vital equipment, and on critical infrastructure dramatically increased the risk of catastrophic delays precisely when communities needed help the most. In Oswego County, crews, still working tirelessly, continued the arduous task of widening roadways, clearing critical access points, and restoring some semblance of mobility where humanly possible. However, authorities somberly emphasized that true recovery would be a protracted, painful process. The massive, towering snowbanks that lined streets and intersections could not be removed overnight. They represented a colossal undertaking. Furthermore, the inevitable melting, followed by the insidious threat of refreezing, raised serious concerns about widespread ice formation and potential flooding once temperatures inevitably fluctuated above freezing. The storm, in its brutal aftermath, also reinforced a growing, undeniable reality across the Great Lakes region. Extreme winter weather is becoming more disruptive, more persistent, and, tragically, far harder to manage. While lake-effect snow has long been an inescapable part of life in this region, events of this unprecedented duration and catastrophic intensity demand heightened preparedness and a level of coordination previously unimaginable. Officials urged residents to remain critically alert, to meticulously follow updated advisories, and to prepare for additional winter impacts as the harsh season continued to relentlessly unfold. By the time the storm finally began to loosen its suffocating grip on Oswego County, its impact had already carved an indelible, lasting mark on the landscape and the collective psyche. What unfolded over those 4 relentless, unforgiving days was far more than an isolated weather event. It was a stark, brutal demonstration of how quickly extreme winter conditions can utterly overwhelm critical infrastructure, violently disrupt the delicate fabric of daily life, and push the very resilience of entire communities to their breaking point. While lake-effect snow remains a familiar, albeit formidable threat across the Great Lakes, the sheer scale and the agonizing, unyielding persistence of this particular event pushed well beyond routine winter challenges, venturing into truly catastrophic territory. Snow depths reaching an astonishing 5 to 8 feet, near-zero visibility that blinded entire towns, and the prolonged, immense strain on emergency services exposed deep-seated vulnerabilities that can no longer be ignored or underestimated. Officials, with a renewed sense of urgency, emphasize that preparedness, not mere reaction, remains the single most effective defense against such unforgiving extremes. As cleanup operations, an effort that will span weeks, if not months, continued, and residents slowly, painfully worked to restore some semblance of normalcy, authorities issued a sobering warning. Similar, potentially devastating conditions could return. The broader atmospheric pattern remained terrifyingly active, and winter, in its cruelest guise, was far from over. In a region where weather can shift with terrifying rapidity, unwavering awareness and timely, accurate information are not just critical, they are a matter of survival. This cataclysmic event serves as a stark, universal reminder that extreme weather is no longer a rare anomaly or a predictable phenomenon. It demands meticulous, proactive planning, unparalleled coordination across all levels of government and community, and a profound, humbling respect for the immense, unforgiving forces at work in our changing climate. Communities that prepare diligently in advance, by reinforcing vital infrastructure, by heeding official warnings with utmost seriousness, and by fostering an unbreakable spirit of mutual support and neighborly aid, are undoubtedly better positioned to endure what harrowing challenges come next. For those watching beyond the snow-choked borders of Oswego County, the message resonates with profound, chilling clarity. Severe winter weather can strike with little to no warning, even in areas long accustomed to the snow. Staying informed, making profoundly responsible decisions, and respecting all travel and safety advisories can, quite simply, save lives. Stay informed, stay safe.